Alrighty, let's go. So I missed out on one a couple days ago. I had to do something that day, and then yesterday there was like an easy one that I'd already done. So time to restart this up. Maximum product of three numbers, easy. Given an integer array nums, find three numbers whose product is the maximum and return the maximum product. 1, 2, 3, okay, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, it'd be 2 times 3 times 4 is 24. If there's negatives, it has to be multiplying the negatives. Okay, so the negatives are the ones that are going to make this trickier. So let's see. You never really want to have three negatives, right? Three negatives is the worst case. But I do have to figure out how to handle that if like all the numbers are negatives. So let's say because if it has two negatives and a positive or multiple negatives and a single positive, then you want to use the multiple negatives. But if you have all negatives, then you want to use the smallest ones. I wonder. I wonder. Should I almost feel like splitting this up into a negative partition and a positive partition? Um, would that make sense? So let's say a negative and a non-negative for every number, for every value in nums. If that value is less than, I wonder if a list comprehension would actually be better than this. It's fine, I guess. If value is less than 0, then negatives appends that value. Else, non-negative appends the value. I guess the first thing I'm going to check is if it's like all negatives, all negative case. So if the length of the non-negative is 0, then I need to find the lowest three. I almost want to just sort this. I mean, sorting it is not going to take that long, right? Versus doing, because trying to find the lowest three is just like such a bother. It's such a bother. Lowest two is like whatever. You could just probably do that. There's some if statements there, but lowest three is like, ugh. I'll try it. I'll try it. I'm gonna assume the lowest is gonna be, let's say V1 is the lowest. V2 and V3 are all equal to negative infinity, I want to say. And then for every value in the non-negative array, or the negatives array, which is currently the only array of values here, I want to get the highest one. Fine. Okay, it's actually the lowest three absolute value wise. So lowest three closest to 0. So for every value in the negatives, if say v1 is closest to 0, so it's the maximum, right? Yeah, so I want to find the maximum. So if the value is greater than the maximum current value, then v1, v2, and v3 are now equal to this value is the maximum. v1 bumps down to v2, v2 bumps down to v3. Else, if this value is bigger than v2, then it just bumps down v2 and v3. So v2, v3 is now equal to this value and v2. Else, if the value is greater than v3, then v3 equals this value. And then just return v1 times v2 times v3. Let's see if this works for the case of negatives, like all negatives. Let's say it's -3, -5, -7, -11, -2. So it should be multiplying -2, -3, and -5. Get me a -30. Okay. Okay. Then the case where there's like a single, if there's multiple positives, if there's two positives, then I would just multiply. If there's three positives, then I multiply the biggest three positives. So if the length of the non-negative, or the length of, I guess this should be else if, right? Else if the length of the non-negative is greater than 2, so there's at least 3. So this is find biggest 3. I guess I find the biggest 3 in any case, right? I find the biggest 3 of either the negatives or find the biggest 3 of the positives. Okay, let me go ahead and just make a helper function then. Find big 3. Let's say array is a list of integers returning I guess it just returns the product. I don't think I need to know the individual values. Find big 3 product. And then I just need to use this code here. So for every value in the array, okay, I think that's right. So if it's all negative, or, so actually no, it's not or. If it's all negative, then I'm going to return whatever I get from find big 3 product of the non-negative array, of the negative array, sorry, of the negative array. Non-negative should be plural, non-negatives, non-negs. Ugh, that sounds so bad. Whatever. Okay. And then for the positive case, it's only if there's more than 3 or 3 or more. So find biggest 3 of the positives or the non-negatives. And in the case where there's 2 positive or 1 positive, I guess they're separate cases. If it's 2 positive, then multiply the biggest 2 positive and the smallest negative. Actually, I want to do is multiply by 0. if possible. Should 0 be included? Should 0 be included in the negatives? Because if it's two positives, then I multiply the two positive with the 0. If it's one positive, then I multiply... No, 0 is its special thing, huh? 0 is its special thing. If it's two positives, then I multiply the two positives with... No, 0 would be counted as a positive. So that would be fine. Two positive with the smallest negative. Okay, the biggest two positives with the smallest negative. So I need to find the biggest two. I guess this is kind of the same code, but big 2 instead of big 3. So let's say V1 and V2. Actually, fuck. Yeah, that's right. V1, V2 is starting at negative infinity for every value in the non-negative array. If the value is greater than V1, update. So V1, V2 becomes value V1. Else if the value is bigger than V2, V2 is equal to the value. And then return V1 times V2 times minimum is the smallest negative, which technically is the maximum. And then the other case is if there's only one positive, then I need to multiply it with the smallest two negatives. Smallest, like the most negative two negatives, and the highest positive, and the single positive. So for every, let's say V1 and V2 are actually going to be infinity for value in negatives. If the value is smaller than V1 value, or V1, V2 is now equal to the value V1, else if the value is smaller than V2, V2 equals the value, return, there's only one value in the non-negative, so non-negative is 0 times V1 times V2. That should be all the cases. I don't feel great about this code at all. Oh, wait, what? So this is the last case here. Oh, whoops, I put the return in the wrong. I put the return in the wrong indentation. That's pretty boneheaded. Oh my gosh. Osh, gosh, big gosh. Oh my god, this is a logic error. Fuck. So here I should be multiplying the smallest two negatives and the biggest positive the instead of the biggest. Yeah, that's so bad, huh? So I actually do need to make this into a helper function. I think this case where it's one positive and two negatives. So this should be, yeah. So I guess this should be, can I make this into general case? So this is the only case where you actually want the smallest. This is the only one where you actually want the smallest numbers. That's these when you want the biggest two as well. These when you want the smallest numbers. All right, fine. I think I'll just create this thing. Let's say, yeah, so it's going to be smallest two. Define find small two product array list of integers. And here I'm using the array passed in and returning just the product of the two values that are the smallest. And here it's going to be, this is, let's say, P1 is this. And then P2 is going to be find small two product of the negatives and then return either P1 or P2 times the largest value in the non-negatives. And that P2 is also going to be the same one here. So it'd be return find small P2, small two product of the negatives times the only value in the positives. Is there any other case that I need to worry about? I think that might be it. I hope that might be it. God damn it. 1, 2, 3. Why did that not work here? Oh, because there was no non-negative. Or yeah, there was no non-negative. I guess this is going to be because the max of non-negatives is 0 here. I mean, I could make a arbitrary non-negative. Like I could literally just add 0 as a non-negative. No, that only works in some cases. Else if the length of non-negative is greater than 2. No, what is... No, it's finding P2 is nothing. So it's getting infinity times 1. Yeah, I don't know if I need... I'm not sure if this thing has two negatives. Okay. If the length of the array is less than 2, then just return 0. Is that Yeah. Uh, is less than 2, yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Um, 10 times 20 times, what is the best thing here? Negative 8 times negative 7 times 20? Negative 8 times negative 7 times 20. Why did this not fall into... Oh, okay, so it's not going to be all negatives. It's not going to be all positives. Because the length of the positive is not... Well, it's not going to be this. Oh my God. Okay, this logic is horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. Oh my God. There's so many bad cases. My logic is so poor. Oh my gosh. I think maybe I just need to actually have an answer that starts at negative infinity and then just improves it based on these test cases that applies to it. Yeah. Look. Oh my God. I mean, I'm so close too, though. 91 out of 93. So maybe it's just this one other edge case. So, so this edge case is if the length of the non-negative is 2. So technically it should be doing this edge case right here. Okay, yeah. It should be finding the smallest product too. Uh, fuck. All right, whatever. This is just poor coding. Poor coding. So let's say P1 equals V1 times V2 times max of negatives here. And P2 is going to be find the small 2 product of the negatives times the minimum times the maximum of the non-negative, and then return the maximum between those two. Okay, please let it be over. Have I finally covered all my bases? Oh my God. Okay. Um, I don't really know what to say about this one, to be honest. Summary. I kind of gave up on finding I'll put this in quote, elegant organization for the logic the cases that are possible. And I'll say in general, need to consider like I'll use P for positive and N for negative. So like positive, positive, positive uh, versus versus positive and negative, negative. Um, yeah, so the three biggest positives multiplied together obviously is the most straightforward answer, but also it could be two biggest negatives multiplied by the biggest positive, or the most negative negatives, two most negative negatives multiplied together times the biggest positive. Um, or it could be like two positives and a negative versus three negatives, something like that, because that's going to give you a negative. And this one could occur if you have only two positives to work with. Well, when would you actually use that? This one could occur if you only have one negative to work with, I guess. Exactly two positives and a negative. Something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of gave up on this one. Complex is going to be O of 1. Actually, sorry. So O of n. Then each solution will need to do at least one path over the values, right? Although, I mean, in general, like getting top 3 or bottom 2 of the array using Python syntax is actually not terrible because you can do multiple assignments within a single equals, like kind of like tuple assignments. These three values that are assigned to these three locations. Space like this me O1 since no extra space is needed. All right.